Hello, I'm Dr. Ramon Martinez. Today is Wednesday, December 17th, 2014, and I'm speaking with David Sierra, who was a longtime columnist with El Excentrico. He was also a writer for the American GI Forum newsletter for many years. Good morning, David. Will you tell me about your early days at El Excentrico?
Okay, I'm Eliseo David Talavera Sierra. In Woodlake, where I was raised, they called me a Pelon, but the white man doesn't know how to pronounce Eliseo, so they call me David. I want you to talk about the Excentrico. I came to San Jose in 1956. And I had seen a copy of the Excentrico magazine. So when I came to San Jose, I got to know some of the people. And I asked about the magazine because I was interested in working for them. And my friend Paul Gary, myself, were sitting in a bar one time. And he said, well, let's go see Bert Garcia. I know Bert, Humberto. Let's go see him. So I said, vamos. So we walked from Maria's on North 13th Street. We walked all the way to the Excentric office, what was Almaden, below Virginia Street 10. And we went and introduced ourselves to Humberto. And I told him I was interested in writing for his magazine. And he said, well, who do you represent? So Paul Gary said, we represent Club San Joaquin. We had just started a San Joaquin club. We had no constitution, no members, nothing. It was in our mind. So he said, give me a couple of weeks. Anyway, we went down to the Jacal bar to have a couple of beers, talk about this thing some more. And he asked me experience I had writing. And I told him I had written for my school paper in high school and in college at Woodbury College in Los Angeles. And I had also edited my fraternity newsletter. I had been the editor, so I had some writing experience. I had written articles for the Fresno Bee when I was in high school, and I had written for the school paper and the town paper, the Woodlake Echo. They gave me my first job, 5 cents a column inch, so I thought I was getting rich, and I enjoyed writing. I have no problem with expressing my opinion, good or bad. I have no problem with that at all. Some people do, I don't. What I learned a long time ago is tell the truth and say it so that 20 years from now you won't be ashamed of what you said, what you wrote. And I always bear that in mind. So anyway, Humberto liked the idea, and he told me I'd let you know 2 weeks. So he let me know. I went to see him again in 2 weeks. And he told me I could have a column. So then we went to organize the San Joaquin Club. We went to the library, wrote a constitution. And there was a Club Del Mar that was writing a column for the Excentrico, but they weren't being very prompt. Write a column for the Excentrico for a club, and about every 3 months you had to go help him gather it, stitch it, gather it, do some work. So he asked how many members we had. We told him we had 30 members. Which we didn't, but that's what we told them. But anyway, we got 14 people together to go gather the magazine. So then we went to the library, wrote a constitution for the club, and started getting members. We got involved doing that. At the same time, we were organizing what we call the UCC League, sport, play basketball, touch football, softball. And I became president of the league, and then I write articles about what was happening in the league all the time. And that's how we got started. Esther Medina was a columnist then, Marty Sanchez was a columnist then, and I don't remember the rest of them. Richard Diaz was a photographer de las Estrellas. I used a lot of his pictures, the magazine used a lot of his pictures. But that's how we got started, and I did a column every 2 weeks. Daniel Saldaña was one of the writers for the Excentrico. Maria de la Luz Sanchez wrote for the Excentrico longer than anybody else, I think. I remember her too. Esther Medina was a good friend, and she wrote for a long time. Alvin Valadez also wrote an article. A lot of the GI Forum members wrote. Ike Hernandez, Dan Campos, Bob Rodriguez. A lot of people wrote for this magazine. At one time, anybody that came through San Jose, Richard Diaz would take a picture, and we would run that picture. Every celebrity, anybody that came through San Jose was in the Excentrico. I met Richard Diaz when I was working for the Excentrico, and he was a photographer, and he also did some articles. He would write about wrestling and boxing. One time he wrote an article that so-and-so wrestler was from parts unknown. So I asked him, Richard, where is parts unknown? I want to go there on my vacation. And he said, well, it's parts unknown. Nobody knows where he's come from. So I said, okay, well, he wrestled in Richmond last night. And he said, no, he went home. And Richard used to go to the ringside bar on North 2nd Street after the matches. So one time I went with him. The wrestlers were at the Civic Auditorium over there killing each other. And then you go to the ringside, they're sitting there with their arms around each other having a jolly old time. So I mean, I knew that wrestling was fake. I knew that. I never took it seriously. But I enjoyed visiting with you meet these people, they're just making $1, that's all. I don't blame them. It's entertainment, it's not a sport. I don't think it's a sport. I wouldn't want to do it, but I don't think it's a sport. I can't believe that people pay $40, $50 to go watch that. I don't believe that, but they do. And it used to fill the auditorium. So it's entertainment, people like it. Richard and I, anytime I needed a picture, I would call Richard, and Richard would come and take the picture. I remember one time, Hubert Humphrey, running for president, and he was going to speak in San Jose. So Richard asked me if I wanted a press pass, and I said, no, I don't. And I figured I can get in to see Humphrey on my own. Anyway, when he came to San Jose, he spoke at Frontier Village. They had him on this little island. At the last minute, just before Humphrey's going to start talking, I go up there to walk on the island, and the Secret Service man is there. You got your pass? I said, I don't have one. See that guy over there? That's Richard Diaz. I know him. And he said, I don't care who you know. You are not going to get on that island unless you have a press pass. So I said, well, I was offered a press pass, but I didn't want one. So he said, well, you're not getting on that island. And I said, I know that guy. I know Hubert Humphrey too. And I know that guy. There was a GI Forum guy traveling with him. I know that guy too. He says, you are not getting on this island. So he sent me back. So I went back to the bar where I was at. And Humphrey got through talking. And when he was coming out, he was being escorted by this member of the GI Forum, a guy from Kansas. So he's walking by us on the way out. And the guy, the GI Forum, hey, David. So he grabs Humphrey by the hand and comes over. And he says, Hubert, you know David Sierra, editor of the GI Forum, don't you? And he said, oh, yes, how are you, David? I had never met him, but that's what made him a good politician. But that was an experience. And then Richard asked me, I didn't know you knew Humphrey. I said, I do now. Another time, Humphrey was going to talk in Corpus Christi at a GI Forum National Convention. And I was asked if I wanted to go meet him and talk to him. And I said, no, I don't. Because the bars were open. I'm going to have a beer in the hell. You know, he's not going to say anything original. I'll read about it tomorrow morning in the Corpus Christi paper. I'll read about what he said and do my article on that. So that's what I did. But Richard Diaz covered a lot of pictures. He had pictures of everything. I have a lot of pictures that he took. He would always give it to me. He never charged me for the pictures. I always gave them to us. We had a barrio conference at Elmwood where we invited high school kids to come and talk about drugs and alcohol. And Richard agreed to come there and take pictures also, which he did. And we appreciated that very much. I don't think any famous person came through San Jose in those days that Richard didn't take a picture. He got everybody. I went to his house one time, he had Vicente Fernandez, Pedro Infante, everybody. You name it, he had their picture. One of the better writers that have been in the Excentrico for a long time was Esther Medina. And she was a very popular column. When I first came to San Jose, people would say, "Did you see what Esther said in the Excentrico?" She was a highlight of the whole thing. Everybody wanted to read what Esther had to say. She was that popular. I didn't agree with everything she had to say. Marcy Mora, I had a lot of respect for her. Good Mexican. Esther was the type of person that I thought was into dancing, but she became a very respectable community leader later on. And I gained a lot of respect for her, more when she quit the Excentrico and started working in the community. She was always involved with a food drive, with a lot of community activities. She had a club called Club Zensory. We went to some of their parties. And Marcy Mora, I remember, there were a lot of people that wrote for the Excentrico. I can't remember. I can't remember them all. I was in my about 26, 27 years old then. And I came to San Jose in 1956. And I started writing for the Excentrico, I guess in 57, 58, 59, something like that. But I covered a lot of the sports in the UCC League. Also Chismes, and my friends were from the San Joaquin Valley, so I would write about them. And we got to meet a lot of people. I found it interesting. I became acquainted with the political thing in San Jose because of the experience of the Excentrico. Met all the politicians, and started going to political gatherings and everything, and got involved in the community. I was very proud of the fact that we wrote positive articles, like when they built a new police building, we wrote an article in favor of that. We wrote an article about the James Boys Ranch, which we got a nice letter from Judge. The judge thanked us for that, Humberto did. And we covered mostly what was happening to me. I would write about a lot of things. For instance, I wrote an article one time about Bakersfield High School playing Santa Barbara football in Santa Barbara. I went to the game, so I wrote about that. And some of the people asked me, "Why are you writing about that?" Why not? You gotta write about something. So I can always find something to write about. I used to collect articles of interest to me and things that might be of interest to other people. I collected articles in the paper, magazines that I read. I would clip them out and then go through them before I wrote my article. I had no problem getting material. And then Humberto would suggest stuff to write about once in a while too. He would give me ideas. So that's how we did it. It was an interesting experience. I told Humberto that someday I'm going to buy this magazine from you. I told him that right after that. I want to buy it from you. You can't last forever. You're getting old now. I was about 30, not even 30 years old. And as a matter of fact, when Humberto died, we did try to buy the magazine, Jack Alwanger and me. But we didn't have the money, and we couldn't find people to buy the thing for us. I have, when the Excentrico folded, I got a copy of each, a whole bunch of boxes of copies of papers, issues. I gave them to the Latino library on South First Street. And then I went back a couple of years later to see how they had put it together. And the lady told me they had thrown everything out. Fortunately, I kept one copy for myself. And then I donated that to the Martin Luther King Library, San Jose State. I donated those. But I have a lot of stuff that I've written. And then some of the stuff is covered in my memoirs, Con Sapos. Some of the articles that I wrote are in there. Okay, this is the last article of the Excentrico, printed in 1981. And I wrote for them for about 17 years. I became the assistant editor appointed by Humberto Garcia. And I quit writing for them after my sister died. So Humberto and I had to go have a beer to celebrate the fact that I was retiring from the Excentrico. So he gave me I went to the bathroom when I came back. He gave me a piece of paper with a time on it, written on it. And I said, "What is this?" He said, "Well, if you were rich, I would give you a gold watch, but I'm not. So this is what time it is." And so I said, "Well, what if you had more money? What would you have given me?" And he said, "I would have written the date in ink." This is an article that I wrote for the last edition. And it was about a dinner that the city of San Jose had for Jim Plunkett at the convention center. I attended the dinner. The GI Forum, San Jose GI Forum, presented a plaque to Plunkett. There were 1,200 people there. This is another article I did for that last edition, and it's about Rosalie Gutierrez winning the Miss San Jose GI Forum contest. I found out years later that this young lady here, who was a contestant, is a distant relative. She's originally from Woodlake. Her name is Teresa. Her name is Renteria then, it's Mendoza now. And she just ran an unsuccessful campaign for Congress. She lives in Sanger now. But she also played softball and she played basketball for Stanford. She was a team captain in softball at Stanford back in the 80s. I didn't know that then, but I know it now.